Hello again. This is Sheldon St. Clair from the St. Clair Knowledge Management Productions. Now, this new video is about the project folder template or project folder structure. It could be called document repository. It's the same thing. Now, projects tend to generate lots of documentation, lots of reports, lots of briefings, lots of slides. And if you're not careful, these documents will become or may become disorganized and require extra effort from the project team to find information, store information in the right place, and actually manage the data. If your boss wants a particular document to take to a meeting, you've got to be able to find it straight away. Not, well, I'll come back to you in an hour's time, a couple of minutes time, or what have you. Your credibility will be shot to bits. Okay, now there are many kind of aspects to a good um, project document management system. Okay, so one of the things that you'll need to think about is defining a logical structure and a naming convention, but also to provide guidance to your team members on the specific location for storing documents. Okay, so here we go. Okay, page. So this is really says that all rights are reserved on this. Okay, it's my intellectual property or the company's intellectual property. You are kind of free to use the information presented in this video segment, but you can't reproduce it, you can't transmit it, you can't sell it, you can't photocopy it. Okay, so I'm just going to provide information for you to use. Okay. Um, each project within a program or program level should have its own folders structured. I'll give it an example of what a folder structure could look like. But yeah, people tend to use different project life cycles. There may be different requirements. This is just a starter. It's a straw man. It's for something for you to consider. But I would recommend that any sort of repository should comprise of four main areas. Okay. You've got your project deliverables. So this is a directory for storing all project related documents. Then you've got, that's indicated on this diagram um, in the first one, which is O1 project life cycle. Now in this structure, I've got one folder for the title, and then I've got subfolders beneath it. So 1.1 prioritize, 1.2 define, 1.3 do, and 1.4 deliver. So those are my subfolders within the project lifecycle main folder. Now, if you all will work on the different sort of project life cycles. Some of you may kind of have like, I don't know, prioritize, initiation, planning, design, um, build, test, implement. So it really depends on which life cycle you follow. But I'd suggest that each of those main areas should have its own folder. Okay, so the next section here is called, or next area is called, on this diagram is called O2, Project Management Processes. Okay, we'll come into that, onto that in a bit more detail later on in terms of what we mean by that. But we've got sections 2.1, which is communications, down to 2.6, which are reports. So to me, these are the two main folder structures and subfolders your project should have. Okay. Now the third area for you to consider is called reference. Yes, that will be a 0.3. This directory could be used to store like org charts, training materials, um, architecture definitions, drawings, graphics. So you can either put the reference folder in the two that I've defined, or you could create another folder. And then the fourth area is called a work area. So this is an area which includes a directory for each team member, perhaps. Perhaps your project is made up of a number of work streams or a number of work packages. Now you may decide to create a subfolder for each of the work streams, for each of the work packages. And then within those, you could have a similar sort of setup to me. Okay, so the benefit of this is that each team member can organize their directory in whatever manner makes sense to them. Yeah, there's probably, you may decide that there's no kind of standard structure at all. Okay, so those are the four main areas: project deliverables, um, project management deliverables, references, a reference library, and a teamwork area. It's okay. So just going to go into a bit more detail in terms of kind of like what these things may kind of like contain. So you've got your project lifecycle, and then you've got prioritize. Now, so prioritize 1.1 prioritize is your folder. Now within that, you may decide to have a business case, um, information about how you prioritized your particular projects, if you've got multiple projects. Um, what else could we kind of have in there? Yeah, I suppose for more information about each of the folders in the other phases, that's going to be on kind of subsequent slides. But it's just to say that, well, this when I've set this up for a client, this is kind of like the folders that we've used. Good. Okay, so prioritize. Um, the information, and as I say, this isn't a definitive list. You may kind of decide to create other subfolders to put into this life cycle phase, or you may decide to rename what's already here. But in terms of this life cycle within prioritize, there are three main documents that we're producing: a business case, um, a research paper, and a feasibility report. Now, because kind of each of those may have a number of iterations, and because you may have like draft copies, some final copies, some signed off copies, you have different iterations for each document. So I thought, well, let's create a subfolder for each of those. Okay, and then within each subfolder, you may kind of have an archive section. Now, within the define, this is kind of the subfolders we've got here is one for governance, initiation, and requirements. So in the governance section, for instance, the type of documents you may have in there, what have we got here in terms of text? To agree the reporting requirements, defines the project controls, and set up the project folder structure. Okay, so yeah, so you may have like a terms of reference document in the governance subfolder. You may have information about your committees, your project structure, your project board, the roles and responsibilities. So those are the sort of things that you can have within governance. Initiation, that's kind of like where you would put that's where you put your PID, your project initiation document that kind of sets out what you're going to do, kind of how you're going to do it, how much it's going to cost, who you're going to need, time that you're going to require. Don't, and then lastly, 1.2.3, which is requirements, and that's kind of the documents in there will be your requirements pack. Um, this is what the client or the sponsor want. This is what they need. If it's like, say, for instance, if I was building a house, well, the house will have 6 rooms. It will have 2 bathrooms. It'll have doors everywhere. It will kind of you'll have your kitchen on the right hand side of the house as you're looking at it. You'll have a large front garden and a small back garden. It will have a garage. Those sorts of things. If you're working on an IT system, well, um, the system will have kind of I don't know, graphic user interfaces. I should be able to kind of it'll have search facilities. Uh, so yeah, so therefore the user requirements will go into this folder. Okay, do. Now in this case, the three subfolders I had within do design, construct, and validate. So therefore all your design papers, um, which is where you kind of like you talk about the features of the project that will go there. Construct is basically to do with kind of like the build itself. If you work on an IT project, it will be the coding that you actually do. And within there, you'll start developing your test cases um, within the construct folder. Um, you know, basically the test scripts, the program scripts. Um, if you were building a house, then it's the materials that you're going to purchase, the materials you're going to use. You get the idea. And then lastly, 1.3.3 is validate. So that's basically where um, all your testing or your I suppose your systems testing is carried out. Okay, but you get the idea. What we're basically saying is that you start off with a main folder, and then you break it down into the folders that you need, the folders that make sense to you. And then lastly, this is kind of like where we're kind of delivering. The, the thing is done, the house is built, the system kind of has been coded and tested, and now we're going to implement it. Now we're going to switch it on. Now we're going to pass the building over to the client for them to use. Okay. So the handover is basically yeah. Sorry for that noise. Yeah. So that the handover is kind of like where you're kind of giving it to the support team, the business as usual team, the client. And then 1.4.3 review. This is kind of like where people are using it for the first time. Any sort of like initial kind of problems are kind of ironed out. Any issues raised are resolved because it's after this point that the project has been complete or the project is completed. Right. The second work area in your document repository is called the project management support. Okay, so this is kind of like these folders and subfolders is where you as a project manager will spend most of your time either creating documents and information, storing them, reviewing information, extracting them. So kind of like these folders and subfolders are very important to your effectiveness as a project manager. Now, I've just given you a list of the subject areas that I believe are important for you to store documents separately. You can add to this list. You can delete items not of interest, not of importance, or you can expand on some of the subfolders that I've currently got. Okay, so at this level, we've got 6 subfolders: 2.1 communications, presentations, financials, 2.4 logs, 2.5 meetings, and finally 2.6 reports. So just kind of briefly going through each of the subfolders and giving you an idea of kind of what information could or should be contained within them. Let's start with 2.1 communications. So this subfolder can be used to store all your briefing notes, newsletter items, um, information that you want placed on the intranet, your extranet, blogs about your project. So this is kind of like the area that you'd actually have them. Now, presentations 2.2. This is kind of where you would hold on your documents that you're presenting to the board, presenting to your project steering committee. So these presentations could be in PowerPoint, um, or different sort of presentational formats and layouts. Okay, 2.3, which is financials. This would typically contain all your financial documentation, like your budgetary information, your forecasts, your actuals, any contract information, any invoices, purchase orders, those sort of things. Um, this is your financial kind of like heart of your project. Uh, in terms of the templates that you would use to um, complete and to hold information, we've got templates available. So please contact us for that. You may decide to put some permissions and access rights on this particular subfolder to stop everyone from looking at it, because it does contain, well, it will contain some very sensitive information about financial dealings with other suppliers, uh, rates, employee rate. So, think carefully as to who you want to have access to this particular subfolder. Right, okay. 2.4 logs. So you would kind of like use this folder to hold all your schedules, in terms of your projects, um, risk issue information, action logs, your change management process. So that's sort of documentation. 2.5 meetings. So you'll have kind of various meetings that you need to attend, on site or off site, projects, with your project team, with suppliers. So all your kind of agendas and meeting minutes should be kept here. And finally, 2.6, which is reports. So you would use this section to hold all your project status or project progress reports. These things could be produced weekly, fortnightly, monthly. You may kind of receive reports from your suppliers. You may receive reports from your project managers, from your work package team leaders. So all your different sort of reports will be kept in this folder here. As I say, this is kind of like a starter for, and I'm basically suggesting, for instance, that you could break it down further and have folders, separate folders for your budget, expenditure, any sort of financial reporting that you're doing, contracts. Um, Now, it may well be that physical contracts are kept in a fire safe or kept externally, but you as project manager, dependent on the size of your project, may decide to keep copies of individual supplier contracts. Okay, and then finally, kind of like governance. So if you've got kind of any other sub projects that you may need to hold financial information about, then you can do so there. Right, logs, very big area. Okay, so the first section, which is 2.1, which 2.4.1 is changes. So any sort of change requests, um, the change control process, change management process. How do we actually induct change or facilitate change on this project? All that information will be kept there. Okay, risk and issues. So you can have your risk and issues log. Um, you may have an assumptions log. You may have a dependencies log. So that will all be kept there. Okay, actions. It may be that you have an actions list. Perhaps that's come out of meetings or perhaps in conversations where there's people that have been tasked to do particular things which aren't necessarily on your project plan. So you can draw up a log and you can use this at your weekly meetings, perhaps, to go through outstanding actions. Okay, there may well be things to do on the project, aren't risks, aren't issues, they're not on the plan, but they're things that need to be done to support the project. Schedules. So this is kind of where your project plan will go. Now your project plan could be a Microsoft done in Microsoft project or an Excel spreadsheet or Word or a PowerPoint display. Whatever floats your boat, whatever you need to do to ensure that your deliverables are um, achieved, are created, are implemented. So that kind of goes there. And finally, and this is kind of something that um, people forget about, but I kind of think it's very, very important. This is called configuration management or a config register. So so what you've got here is a document, could be an Excel spreadsheet, where the latest important things are listed in here as a hyperlink. So therefore, you may kind of have in here a simple register that says, for instance, business case. And then if they click on a hyperlink, that takes them to the location of that business case, the latest one. And you could do the same thing for your PID, for your design, your feasibility papers, basically all kind of like the documents which are important to you and important to your sponsors. Okay. because there will be a time if you want a big project that you're not sure where things are, where the latest versions of things are, and this by kind of logging them in here, that will prove really, really helpful. Okay, so this aids version control. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so meetings. I mentioned that about that before. I've just got three categories here, or three subfolders. 2.5.1 team meetings, whether that's held your daily, weekly, or what have you. Your board meetings. Now, you may have a number of different sort of levels of board meetings. You could have your project board that you report to, where all your stakeholders and your sponsor sits. There may be a program board where you don't attend all the time, but if you kind of like do, then that information can be kept there. And then you may have like your company board meetings. Okay, so you can use that, and then you may have suppliers that you need to meet, whether it's kind of external IT suppliers, or again using my analogy of building a house. If you're kind of meeting the electricians or the plumbers or the builders or the scaffolders, then kind of like those meetings should be documented because it protects you as well. Because in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, when people forget what was agreed, or they kind of forget what roles and responsibilities they had, you've got something that you can go back to. Yeah. So lots of people have been caught out by, I didn't say that, I didn't agree to that. Well, this record um, doesn't lie. Right, okay, reports. So I can suggest that you have a separate section for your reports and a separate kind of folder structure for your different types of reports. So if you're kind of doing kind of, you're producing a weekly status report, or people are producing reports for you, then that can go there. If you're producing a project report, what I'll probably do is kind of do a video about what these things mean and perhaps kind of the templates you can use. We have templates for all the deliverable types, so I'll be happy to share those with you in a later video. But yeah, any sort of like project reporting that you need to do, and board papers that you prepare. So you will use this folder to prepare, for instance, your board papers, your board pack in 2.6.3, and then kind of like when you're actually making a presentation, you'll take that and you'll put it into the folder we had earlier, which was about presentations. Okay, so you create it in one area, but you can share it in different areas. Okay, the end. Now, I hope you found this video useful. If you've got any kind of questions, then please kind of update the comments log. If you like it, click on the up thumb. If you don't like it, then that's equally useful information for me. And yeah, come back with any sort of comments, good or bad. It's all useful. So just reminds me to say that this is Sheldon St. Clair of the St. Clair Knowledge Management Productions. Have a good day and await a future video from us. Bye bye.